I would like to hear from everyone, just because, like I said, this is supposed to be so interactive. And so I will sort of call on people if I can. When I call on you, please just say your name, say what organization you work with, and if there's a specific population that you work with, why don't you share that with us as well? So let's start with Valerie. I see her next to me. Why don't you check in?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, so my name is Valerie Awad, and I am a patient and family support navigator with the Colorectal Cancer Alliance. We were formerly the Colon Cancer Alliance, but we have rebranded so that we're more inclusive of the rectal cancer folks also. I've been with them about almost 4 years now, and we deal with colorectal cancer patients, their families, and just try and help them all the way through their journey.
Great. Thank you for joining us today, Valerie. How about Crawford? Can we check in with Crawford?
Okay, I'm unmuted now. Hey, I'm Crawford Clay. I'm a colon cancer survivor of 13 years or so, and I work for the Colorectal Cancer Alliance with Val.
Great. Thanks so much. How about Lisa? Lisa Hogan.
I have been an advocate for taking these classes through the Patient Navigation Collaborative. I work with senior populations privately, and I have licensure in the state as a CNA QMAP, and I've done a lot of training and advocacy and navigation for a couple of years now.
Awesome. All right. Well, great. Thanks for joining us, Lisa. How about Preeti?
Hello. Can you hear me?
You can.
Awesome. My name is Preeti. I'm a care navigator with Healthy Communities, and I work with children and pregnant women and understanding their benefits and getting resources.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
And hi, Megan.
Hi, everyone. Megan Garrett's Northwest Colorado Community Health Partnership. I serve 2 counties. I specifically serve the Medicaid, Medicare population, and we contract through the RICO, so we try and target high-costing Medicaid users and frequent ER visitors.
Great. All right. Thank you. All right. We'll move on. How about Jay Hendricks? Can we check in with Jay Hendricks?
Yeah. Hi. You got my last name right. Awesome. John Hendricks. I work for Grand County Rural Health. I serve the dually eligibles in Grand and Jackson County.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Okay, and how about Eileen?
You are unmuted, Eileen.
Okay, are you guys hearing me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm Eileen. I work for Jewish Family Service, and I work with refugee populations, just doing a whole lot of navigation, but kind of focusing on medical navigation.
Great, thank you. Awesome. I think next is our infamous Mr. John Young. John, are you on today? Hi, John. Okay, well, we'll come back to John. How about Sylvia?
Help. I have a program, the autism program. I work with families doing home visits.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Okay. Okay. How about Jeanette?
Hello. I'm Jeanette Kazi, and I work with Grand County Rural Health Network, and I serve Medicaid clients in Grand and Jackson counties.
Wonderful, thank you. And how about Giotti?
And we.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi. Hi, my name is Jyoti Sapkota, and I'm with Healthy Communities and Denver County, and we help clients who has Medicaid and CSP finding resources and connecting to providers, those kind of stuff.
All right, great, thank you. And I see there are 3 or 4 folks who've joined us that just have their phone number. If that is you, if you want to unmute your phone and just check in real fast, we would appreciate it. we will, yeah, send them down.
You can do *6. We'll unmute yourself.
All right, well, just for the nature of today's presentation, let's go ahead and move on. It was so nice to meet you all. One of the great things about getting an introduction from everyone is realizing that we are meeting today with people who serve humans across the lifespan, really. There were some folks who work with pregnant women, families, children, all the way up to seniors, some cancer survivors, which can be any age. So it's really great to have you all. Thank you all for joining today. Okay, I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. We were successful doing this in there you go. All right. All right, folks. So we are doing today, this is a 4-part series, and today's is focused on self-care. So let's just go ahead and jump in. When you're a helper, as am I, and have done this for years, I'm sure that you know that taking care of yourself is first and foremost. When you don't find time for self-care, when you feel pushed to your limits, you know, when you're at the very end of your margins, it's hard to be an effective helper. And you can sometimes see that when you're working with folks, and sometimes, you know, you just sort of notice it as time goes on. So taking that time to really focus on you and your own wellness is just really, really important. It's easy to get sick if we don't. It's easy to lose motivation. It's easy to feel frustrated or angry or even get burnt out. And so we're going to do a whole session on burnout next time around, I think in February. But our goal today is just to talk about ways to really avoid you know, getting to that place where you feel burnt out. So the first thing is, it's important to know that when we talk about wellness, we're talking about more than just taking a bubble bath or calling your friend or any of that kind of stuff when we're in need. We as helpers are subject and exposed, I guess, in a lot of ways to a lot of different people who have a lot of different stories. And sometimes we can take those home with us no matter how hard we try. Sometimes we can get affected by the folks that we help out. Sometimes we run into folks who don't want our help, and that can be hard for us to work around also. So for us, wellness has to be a daily goal. And we really have to be vigilant in a few different areas every single day if we're going to maintain our wellness. So according to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, that's SAMHSA, there are 8 dimensions of wellness. And so you can see here on your screen, they are in alphabetical order: environmental, emotional, financial, intellectual, occupational, physical, social, and spiritual. So we're going to unpack some of these. The first one is environmental wellness, and this one is a little hard to explain at first. It's like it says on the screen here: good health by occupying pleasant, stimulating environments that support well-being. So I know that environmental wellness is something that's very different to different people, and for some of us, some people that we work with, maybe having environmental wellness might mean just having a roof over your head. It might mean having a place to sleep. It might mean having heat on a cold night. It might mean having your next meal, knowing where that's coming from. You know, folks who have the basics met, for them, environmental wellness might be something like living in a home where they're not being abused, or living in a home where they have relationships that are helpful for them and satisfying. And for folks who have all of that going for them, environmental wellness might be something like your proximity to the mountains and how many snow days you have that you get to go skiing. So there's a really wide continuum for what environmental wellness is, and it really is different for everyone. This is especially important for we who live in Denver, working with people who also live in and around Denver. Rents are so high and housing costs are so high that some people who, you know, maybe 10 years ago lived in a safer neighborhood have been displaced. And so that's something to really pay attention to for ourselves and also for the people that we work with. It's hard to be happy and to be healthy when you don't have environmental wellness. So just take a second and think about what a healthy environment looks like for you. It's also a really good practice to think about what a healthy environment might look like for the folks that you're working with. And if you're always working with populations who, you know, who need you to help them put out housing fires, that can be super stressful. And so if you're in that boat, then it's really super important for you to focus on these wellness principles. So. Next is emotional wellness. This is one of those that seems like it makes sense right off the bat. Of course, we want to be emotionally well. You can see here it says that emotional wellness means coping effectively with life and creating satisfying relationships. So a lot of times when we ask people what they think about what emotional wellness means, they'll say being happy or you know, being in a good mood most of the time. And I think it's important to point out that emotional wellness isn't just that happy and satisfied end of the spectrum. Humans have a range of emotions, a whole continuum of different emotions. And I know, you know, listening to your check-ins and thinking about the different populations that you work with, you know, if you're working with an individual who's struggling with cancer, of course you're not going to expect them to be in a happy mood or to be, you know, in a positive mood all the time. And that probably will affect your mood as someone who's helping that person. So it's helpful to not only pay attention to, like I said, that positive end of the spectrum, but also that negative end of the spectrum, or, you know, sadness, frustration, fear, anger. Those are normal emotions for us to have, and they're normal for us to display. People who have emotional wellness, and what we should be focused on as people who are helping, is just the healthy sort of dissemination or the healthy display of those emotions. And so it's okay to be angry. It's not okay to be aggressive. And so for us, finding ways to express that anger, you know, in ways that are helpful and assertive, instead of letting it all kind of build up and then just exploding. I know I probably don't have to ever point this out, but sometimes as people who work really closely with other people, we become role models for them also. And so if we can kind of show them that we're able to really deal, again, with this whole continuum of emotion in a really satisfying way, that can be helpful for them too in their journey. Okay. All right, let's talk about financial wellness. This is my personal least favorite. It's, you can see on your screen, just satisfaction with current and future financial situations. That can be tough in tons of different ways. Again, I'm glad that we all got to kind of introduce ourselves, because there are peer navigators online who are dealing with all sorts of different individuals. And so we also, as helpers, a lot of times what that means for us is that we don't get paid a ton, which, you know, it's part of the business and it's part of it. I'm sure that we all love our jobs and go home and are satisfied with them, and then that's way more important for us than making $1 million a year. But it is just part of the way that it works, that we are all going to struggle with some financial wellness. So a little planning and prioritizing is something that we all need to focus on when we're thinking about our financial wellness. It's clear to say that a budget is really important when we're talking about our own financial wellness, but you know, working with a budget can be difficult too. So prioritizing needs is really important. Of course, you need a place to live. Of course, you need transportation. You need to eat. And then prioritizing from there what goes with your values. And values is something that we'll talk about on a different webinar during this series. But, you know, we all have different values, and we all practice sort of our practice of life based around our values. And so it's really important that we line up our financial priorities with our values. And that's really the best way to have a budget that works for us. So get your needs out of the way and then work with your prioritizing your own values after that. Tracking spending, you know, all of those things are helpful ways to work with your financial wellness. There are people in the world who are there specifically to help you work with your financial wellness. If you're lucky enough to have access to one of them, they can really help you put this in line. So, you know, then it's a new year, it's a new you. What are some steps you can take to get your financial wellness on track, no matter what your salary may be? All right, let's look at some intellectual wellness. This is another one that right off the bat seems sort of strange, that we would have something called intellectual wellness, but you can see on screen here, it's recognizing creative abilities and finding ways to expand knowledge and skills. So intellectually healthy people recognize their own abilities to be creative, and in this case, I want to point out creativity can mean anything that you want it to. You know, there's a big debate about how we study IQ and intelligence levels and things like that. And one of the new, you know, schools of thought coming online is that we're not looking enough at creativity. And so it's so important for us to take time to develop those skills, to hone in on them. And again, like I said, creativity, there's a gamut of what that means. And it's important to figure out what it means to you. And just really focusing on always expanding your knowledge and skills around whatever it is that you're interested in expanding knowledge and skills about. So, you know, it's important to think to yourself, am I challenging myself? I know a few of you share that you've been in your position for years, and some of you even decades, and it's important to almost like reinvent your reinvent your position after a little bit, because it becomes not as challenging, and when it's not as challenging, that can also actually really lead to burnout. It might make more sense to think of it the other way around, but also when we're not challenged enough, that's something that leads to dissatisfaction in working environments. So as long as you're challenging yourself and pushing yourself to learn new things, to you know, learn new skills, to practice those new skills, to become masterful at those skills. You might subscribe to trade magazines, you know, and read those in your time and share information about those. You might go to, you know, conventions for your specific trade. You might have a challenging hobby or a pastime that's important for you and something that you enjoy but maybe aren't great at yet. All of those are things that contribute to intellectual wellness. So for yourself, just take a second and think if you engage in any of those sorts of activities, if you're pushing yourself, if you're challenging yourself intellectually in any way. And if you're not, think for a second about what the barriers are around that. What is it that's keeping you back? And maybe in the exact same way that you learn to work with your clients and helping them think about barriers and think about ways around those barriers, think about this one for yourself. What is it that you're interested in? Is there a passion or a hobby that you've had on the back burner, you know, since the 90s that you haven't gotten back into? Maybe you want to do some photography, or maybe you want to learn stand-up paddleboarding. Just sort of challenging yourself. Intellectual wellness really goes with occupational wellness. And this is personal satisfaction and enrichment that's derived from somebody's work. So like I mentioned earlier, occupational wellness for helpers is generally pretty high, but we do have to be very vigilant about this one, because we can end up in situations that can lead us to feel less occupational health and wellness. We can work with folks who get angry. We can work with folks who need to be managed emotionally. We can work in situations where people aren't happy with us, you know, where they're not receptive of our help or, you know, our resources and guidance. So it's important that we focus on our occupational wellness. So if you find that you're dreading going into work, that's a big red flag for us that are helper folks. So it's important to work through those in order to focus on your your occupational wellness. It's easy to think that, oh, I'll just ignore this and maybe this problem will solve itself. But hopefully you have a supervisor or other peers that you can kind of trust and spend some time with. That's really, really important in this sort of field to having occupational wellness. It's having a supervisor or peers around you that you can talk to and share this kind of stuff with. Taking it home just can become so harmful. You know, sometimes, like I said, when you're interacting with people and that's your job, you can get home and find yourself waking at 3 o'clock in the morning and thinking like, oh gosh, you know, I should have said this, I should have done that. And that can just get really trying. So making sure that we're really focusing on those kind of situations and using the resources that we have in our environment is just of utmost importance for our occupational wellness. You can also use other dimensions of wellness to boost your occupational wellness. And that's really, I mean, it's true with all 8 of the dimensions of wellness, but it's especially true of occupational wellness. So maybe if while you're working, the worst part of your job, and this probably is true for all of us, is that dreaded documentation time, sitting writing all those notes and encounters that we have with folks. So maybe it'll be helpful to turn to your creativity side and put some music on while you're writing those notes. Maybe you can meet with a client while you're taking a walk. Maybe that will coincide with some physical wellness kind of stuff. So maybe you can rearrange your office and make it more aligned with feng shui, and that will be more helpful for you, you know, during the parts of the job that aren't as fun. So I encourage you guys to just take a second and think about what steps you can take to increase your occupational wellness. And if your occupational wellness is low, what is your first step to rectifying that situation? Who can you go to? What are the resources you have available for yourself? Physical wellness is probably the most easy to answer dimension of wellness when it comes to what exactly does that mean. Physical wellness is huge and encompasses a ton of stuff. Like you can see on your screen, physical activity, diet, sleep, and nutrition. It's eating well, sleeping well, moving your body. All those things are part and parcel to your wellness. So I want to be sure to point out, you don't have to count calories to make sure you're eating well. Sometimes it's enough to just make sure you're eating 3 solid meals a day and eating all 4 food groups during the course of the day. I work currently in a few clinics at University of Colorado Hospital, and I would say every single day I have a conversation with folks about eating and about just the basics. And is it, you know, when is the last time you ate, and what are the foods that you've been eating, and are you filling your body with food that is nutritious and nourishing for you, or are you relying on fast food and, you know, convenience items to get you through the day? There's a really strong link between our physical wellness and our emotional wellness, of course. So sometimes people don't know that the link is so strong and so important. So and sometimes we lose sight of that too. You know, we can find ourselves working 45, 50 hours a week and trying to take care of our family at the same time. You know, when we might find ourselves stopping for fast food or for convenience foods on the way to work, you know, and those are things that will help us to crash and to, you know, have bad days. And so us taking a second to take a step back and to think about our own physical wellness is really of utmost importance here. Same thing with the physical activity piece. You do not have to go run on a treadmill to gain any sort of physical wellness. This can be, the CDC recommends you get about 30 minutes per day for adults, about 5 days a week. So that's about 2.5 hours per week. And that can be anything that feels like exercise. It can be walking your dog. It can be vigorously gardening. It can be playing with some active kiddos. Whatever it is, you know, those are physical activity things as well. Also, really pay attention to your sleep. Sleeping is so important, and people really, I think, overlook the importance of this nowadays. If you're tired during the day, if you feel fatigued, if you can't sleep at night, you know, these are all things that we need to pay attention to as helpers, because these are also things that will just really decrease our sense of satisfaction in the world and with our work, and that will play out in our interactions with our clients. So if you're having trouble sleeping, there's a whole literature on sleep hygiene, and we'll go into some of this when we talk about burnout. But sleep hygiene entails things like making a routine for yourself before you go to bed, or you know, signaling to your body that it's time to go to sleep instead of playing with electronics or playing online until it's time to go to bed. So your physical wellness is really impacted by small changes a lot of times. So I would encourage you now to just take a second and think about what are some small changes you might be able to make for yourself that would impact your physical wellness. All right, and social wellness, like it says, it's developing a sense of connection, belonging, and a well-developed support system. Social wellness is another tricky one for people who work directly with other people. So some days our time is chock full back to back to meeting with clients, meeting with families, meeting with other healthcare providers. There are days where you don't stop talking all day long. And so it can be really tempting at the end of the day to go home and just say, I'm turning the phone off. I'm not talking to another human the rest of this day. And some days that is what you need to do for your social wellness. But I would really caution you against using that as a bolster to your wellness more often than not, because what that may be leading you to do is to isolate and withdraw from other people. And if the only people you talk to are people at work, that can be a major factor for your own wellness. So I definitely encourage you to take a second and think about some of those things. Like I said, it's okay to know that you need time alone, and please don't take that away from yourself, especially if you are an introvert working in an extrovert's world here. Taking time to recharge your batteries is really important, but make sure that you are aware of what the difference is and where you're at in that process. And finally, spiritual wellness. This means expanding our sense of purpose and meaning in life. A lot of people, when you ask them what spiritual wellness means, what they come up with is being part of something bigger than yourself. So again, just like physical wellness, this doesn't mean that we are going to church every Sunday. This doesn't mean that we are reading religious texts every day. This doesn't mean that we're engaging in any sort of formal or organized religion practice. It just means that we're taking time to connect with our greater universe in some way. And so whether that's a walk through nature, whether that's being with other people, whether it's getting into the religious texts that sort of are illuminating for you, whatever it means for you, it's okay for whatever spiritual wellness is. So spiritual wellness is another place where it's really important to make sure that it's aligned with your values. And if your spiritual wellness practice isn't aligned with your values, you will know it, and it will feel very incongruent. So if that is you, if that resonates with you, I really challenge you to think about what are some ways that you can engage in spiritual wellness in a way that feels satisfying to you. So those are our 8 dimensions of wellness. There are several ways to live well and to be well. We strive for balance in all of these dimensions of wellness, but it's so difficult to pay attention to all 8 at once. And it's really common to dive in and work on 1 or 2 and start to notice that you're feeling great about those 2 dimensions, only to notice that the other side of the teeter-totter needs some help. So it's a comprehensive concept. Wellness is not something that we can just fix overnight. So achieving some balance between the dimensions is something that's going to contribute significantly and positively to your own wellness. So let's jump in and try some of this fun stuff. So here's a little worksheet. This is our activity for the day, and there are a few questions on here. The first one is I'm going to challenge each of you that's on the line today to take about 5 minutes and work through this activity. And so the first question is, which dimension do you feel like you want to work on? Of the 8, it's up to you which one you want to pick. If you want to pick something where you need a ton of work, or if there's just one there where you feel like, oh, I used to pay attention to this a lot, and now I just need a little bit of encouragement. So it's up to you. Pick which of the 8 dimensions you feel like you want to work on today. The next thing on the list of our activity is, what is an activity you can engage in that will increase your wellness in this dimension? And so just do a little bit of brainstorming to think about what activity you might be able to use or to place to work on that dimension of wellness. So I do want to let you know to keep these PG, because you'll likely be sharing them with other folks once we hit our breakout rooms. So the next piece of our activity is, what is a SMART goal that you can make around this activity? And if you're not familiar with SMART goals, these are goals that are very specific, they're measurable, they're attainable, and they are time limited and also realistic. And so it's just a very realistic goal with information about when you're going to be meeting that goal. So say I pick physical wellness as my dimension, and for my activity, I say I'm going to walk 30 minutes every day throughout the week. My goal would be to walk with my dog around my block, which is a half a mile, enough times to make it 30 minutes every day of the week. So you see how it's very specific and time limited there. List a couple of things you might think of that could be barriers. For that goal, it could be something like the fact that it gets dark at 5 o'clock at night, and sometimes I don't get home from work until 8 p.m. That could be a barrier to reaching that goal. Another thing could be I don't have good sneakers, so I need to rectify that before I try to start walking. That goes in line with the next part of our activity. What do you need to reach this goal? And so along with this example, it could be some new sneakers, it could be a walking buddy, it could be a big bundly coat so that I can go on and walk even if it's 8 o'clock at night. So. And also thinking about how you'll be accountable to that goal. And so if that's sharing your goal with other people, if it's, like I said, getting a buddy to do along with you, whatever it is. So just take a few minutes and jot down your answers to this, as much as you can, and then we are going to be moving to breakout rooms. And once you hit the breakout room, go ahead and share with whoever you're paired with in your breakout room what your goal is, and just a little bit of information about how you're going to go about reaching that goal. There will be probably about 15 minutes in the breakout room, and actually a little bit less than that, so about 13 minutes in the breakout room. Let's just spend the first little bit of that working on our activity. We really want to get to the case consultation that we have available. So spend a few minutes chatting with each other about your goals, and then move on to the case conference when you're in the breakout room.
All right, so I have everyone divided into breakout rooms of 3 to 4 people. So you will be directed to this room, and then you can introduce yourself and start working on the activity. And in a couple minutes, we'll send a message to the breakout room with the case scenario. I know I sent it out over email as well, but this way it'll pop up on your screen, and those of you on the phone will be in your own breakout room, and we'll pop in to help you troubleshoot that, and we can read the scenario, or if you can pull it up on your email, that would be great. All right, here we go. Hi, everyone. We're just waiting everyone to rejoin from the breakout rooms.
All right. Well, welcome back, everyone. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I know some of you are on lunch break and whatnot, and you have clients to meet with. So if you have to jump off, thank you so much for coming today. I know we kind of ran out of time, and I will take that into consideration for our next meeting, which will be in February, and that will be on burnout. So just a quick note to let you know, my plan is to let you know all the research about burnout and talk about some concrete strategies you can use to avoid it. So that'll be February. Hope to see you there. If you do have a few minutes and want to stick around to chat a little bit about our case conceptualization, then you are more than welcome to do that as well. Also, I know that we wanted to give everyone a space and time to share a resource. We didn't get to that today. I'm really sorry. I apologize for that. If it's something that you really want to share, please go ahead and type it into the chat, and everyone will be able to see it. Otherwise, just go ahead and bring it back for our next meeting in February, and I'll make sure that we have some time available to do some resource sharing. So if you have to go at 12:30, then thank you for coming. Otherwise, let's take a look at our case and have a little discussion about it. I was in a couple different rooms. It sounded like there were a few folks who were talking a little bit about the case. Does anybody have any thoughts they want to share and follow up about that? Jonna, I know you said that sounded like it might be your life, and were you able to come up with any sort of strategies to help?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I looked at it and I decided it was my life, and well, it's part of it anyway. But I thought for him, I would maybe ask him, you know, what's going on? You're not sleeping well. Are you waking up through the night? Are you having nightmares? Are you taking something to help you sleep? Like, are you drinking? That sort of thing. And I'd also find out about diet. I know for me, recently, I've started getting up early in the morning and having a green shake before 9 o'clock in the morning.
Awesome.
A green smoothie, and then eating little bitty balanced meals through the day so that I don't go home and eat everything in the refrigerator. And I've also decided for me what motivates me, you know, what brings me joy, what brings me, what makes me happy, what makes me feel good. To me, those are two separate things because I can gauge what makes me feel good, whereas happiness is somewhat subjective and fleeting. So those would be the three areas I would want to have a walk and talk with him about and just hear what he has to say.
Excellent. That's good feedback. Anybody else want to throw some ideas in about how you would talk to our peer navigator? Okay. Well, good. Well, that was great feedback. Thank you, John. Like I said, want to be respectful of your time. So let's jump off here. But I hope to see everybody in February for our burnout session.
Yep, I will open registration for that soon, and I'll be sure to send people that link to sign up for that next session. And I will also send out a quick survey link. It'll just help us continue to hold these sessions and improve them. So please fill out that survey. I also copied it into the chat. If you have a couple seconds now, we'd love to hear your thoughts. So thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.